Mike Gallagher.
I just saw a video clip of Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida. He went to the George Washington University protests, and some old guy started shrieking at him with racist slurs. And it turns out that the guy was identified as a terrorist sympathizing professor at Georgetown and George Washington University, an American university. Oh, he teaches all over the place. He's a professor screaming racist slurs at Byron Donalds. His name is Zain El Amine. Benny Johnson just posted on social media, why do universities act surprised at their students' pro-terrorist tantrums when their own professors hired to educate students openly make martyrs out of the murderous Hamas? They call them the Palestinian Liberation Fighters. Wow. Good thing Trump has some clarity on this. It'd be nice if he could be out on the campaign trail talking about it on a regular basis, but of course he is tied to a courtroom where Judge Merchan is, according to Andy McCarthy, orchestrating an inevitable guilty conviction. Let's welcome back Arthur Aidala from AM 970 The Answer. He's running around. I mean, listen, I see you on TV. You're in a courtroom. You're holding press conferences, and yet you still make time for little old Mike Gallagher. I'm honored.
I have no, we got that whole, that whole nicely thing, bonding thing going on.
We do.
So.
We bond. I got offered a theater role this morning in Bradenton, Florida. I got to turn it down. Hey, great to have you back. Have you been able to read, and I as busy as you are with the Harvey Weinstein case and all the stuff that's going on in your world, I know you're monitoring the Trump trial very closely. The whole country, I mean, hey, the media, some of the people in the media are calling it the trial of the century. It's a sham. It's a joke. It's a disgrace. You're a famed attorney. You know it as well, I believe. But Andrew McCarthy wrote an essay over at National Review about how the judge is orchestrating Trump's conviction the jury might think that Trump has been charged with a conspiracy to steal the 2016 election, but actually he was not. That's not even true. But are you worried about the actions of this judge in terms of what he's allowing, what he's permitting, what he's not permitting? What's your takeaway over what I believe is not the trial of the century, it's the sham trial of the century?
Well, okay. You just threw a lot at me there, Mike. Let me just start off by saying I'm always hesitant to talk about a judge or any lawyer when I'm not in the courtroom and I don't see all the rulings. One of the reasons why Justice Scalia did not want cameras in the United States Supreme Court was he said, all that's going to happen is the nightly news is going to take 20 seconds of a 1 hour argument. And that's the headline everyone is going to run with. So,
Sure.
We're catching the headlines of Judge Merchan and his rulings. I will tell you, the reports that I've gotten back is that he actually hasn't been that bad. There's been things that the prosecutor has wanted in, he has not allowed in. First and foremost, that tape with a Billy Bush tape. So I don't know.
But by the way, sorry to interrupt you, but today he ruled that the Access Hollywood tape can be entered. Oh, that's the Billy Bush tape you're talking about, right?
Yeah, but I think it's just the language. He made some kind of ruling stopping the prosecutor from doing everything they wanted. That's the best way that I can say it right now. But look, I think it's really the prosecutors and the fact that this case was brought in the first place. I mean, I'm always honest with you, Mike. I've been doing a lot of television. I've been on with all of these former prosecutors, some of whom have never been criminal defense attorneys, and they think, oh, this case is all right. And I'm the only one yelling and screaming, saying, you don't even exactly know what he's charged with and what the elements are that the district attorney's office has to prove. How could you say this case is all right? Have you ever tried a case where you don't know what the elements of the crime are? Because this is one of those cases. And, if you're going to charge for the first time a former president of the United States, who may be the next president of the United States, with a crime, you damn well know what crime it is that you're actually charging him with. So it's the prosecutors that I have more of an issue with than the judge.
Here's what Andy McCarthy writes, and I'm interested in your take on this, because business records he's being charged with falsifying business records with fraudulent intent. That's the charge. And of course, Bragg has this weird legal theory, has expanded it to try to encompass some kind of vague election interference. And that's why I guess it got turned into a felony, because here's what Andy McCarthy says. Business records falsification is normally a misdemeanor under New York law, 175-.05. But it can be inflated into a felony with a prison sentence if prosecutors can prove that the defendant's fraudulent intent included the concealment of another crime. This business records felony was defined by the New York legislature, Arthur, codified in the New York Penal Code. New York prosecutors are empowered to enforce only New York law. Hence, when the felony statute refers to another crime, he said, it is obviously referring to another New York crime, not a federal crime that a New York County district attorney is not authorized to prosecute. So McCarthy says, yet in his major pretrial ruling, Judge Merchan endorsed Bragg's theory that because 175.10 says another crime rather than another New York crime, there is no bar to Bragg's endeavoring to prove that Trump was concealing a federal crime. That's the legal meat of this, isn't it, Arthur?
Yes, and I agree with Andrew McCarthy on that point. I thought you meant some of the rulings he's making during the trial, but yes.
No, the pretrial, yeah.
Pretrial ruling that allowed this to go forward, I agree with Andrew. And this is even more crazy. What some of my colleagues are trying to say who are defending this, they're saying, oh, no, it doesn't have to be a federal felony. It could be the New York State election law felony. I said, well, that's also a misdemeanor out of the statute of limitations. I said, so are you telling me falsifying business records, which is outside of the statute of limitations, and this election law misdemeanor outside of the statute of limitations, are you trying to say if you put two misdemeanors together, both outside of the statute of limitations, it equals a felony that he can be prosecuted on? And they're like, yes. And I go, that just does not make any sense to me. But I guess according
to Andrew McCarthy, none of this is going to pass any serious appellate court's straight-face test. But of course, by the time it gets overturned on appeal, it'll likely be after the election. And that's the whole point here. I believe with all of my heart they're doing this to rig the election. They're trying to steal the election from Trump with this bogus sham trial. Now, you mentioned you've heard from former prosecutors, and you've, I guess, gone on with former prosecutors who say, oh, this is all fine, it's all normal. We happen to have a guy who's identifying himself as a former prosecutor, and he says there's everything about this trial is normal. I want to take him, if you don't mind. Steve in St. Petersburg. Say hello to Arthur Aidala, our legal Power Hour guest here from AM 970 The Answer in New York. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call, even though I disagree with you. So just by way of background, I was a federal prosecutor in Chicago for 18 years, and I've been a criminal defense lawyer for 22 years, and my practice involved...
Hey, do me a favor. My time with Arthur is limited, so I want you to go right to your point about why you think this sham trial isn't a sham trial.
Okay, because to assess the validity of the prosecution, you ask yourself, is there evidence supporting the charges? And does the plain meaning of the statute support the interpretation of the charges? And the answer to both is yes. There's abundant evidence that the financial records were misclassified, okay,
outside
from multiple sources.
Wait a minute. Go ahead, Arthur. Respond to what he's saying.
Outside of the statute of limitations. But go ahead. Keep going.
Outside the statute of limitations, but go ahead, counselor.
Well, okay. I don't know where that defense has come in. Anyway, there's abundant evidence that the business entries are fraudulent, okay? And then you look at the plain meaning of the words in the statute to interpret whether the statute is being applied correctly. And the wording that expands this into a felony is that the purpose of the fraudulent financial record entry is to commit another crime. It doesn't say another.
I know
New York
we just covered all that. Can I ask you a personal question? Because you sound like a guy of good faith, and I'm not going to challenge that you are who you say you are, even though you changed your name when you called my screener. That's okay.
I didn't change my name.
Yeah, you did. Your name popped up. Yeah, it did. It popped up as another name because you've called before. That's fine. I'm not gonna attack your integrity.
Right,
I've got a personal question for you. What's your opinion of Donald Trump?
Well, my opinion of Donald Trump has nothing to do with
I asked you what your opinion is of Donald Trump.
Very low. I think he's a very dishonest man.
There we go. That's the answer, and that says it all. But so Arthur, that sums it up. I mean, when you're rooting against Trump,
if you want to keep it legal, the point he didn't pick up on is what Andrew McCarthy was saying in his article, which is it's only the legislature is only giving us the authority to prosecute New York crimes. What the gentleman was just saying is a federal election crime. And by the way, he said he's a federal prosecutor. Well, all I'm dealing with is federal prosecutors, but guess what? It's a little bit of a different language, not a total different language between federal law and state law when it comes to criminal law. So, I just take it from where it comes. But what you said with Andrew McCarthy had to do with the legislature gives us the power to enforce state laws, not federal laws. So
not federal laws.
Out of their element.
And Andy McCarthy says, look, in this trial, elected progressive Democrat DA Alvin Bragg, who Steve supports from Florida, doesn't have much of a case, but he has the judge, and that is all he needs. Arthur, great catching up with you.
He's got the jury. He's got the jury, Mike. Don't forget, Trump got 13% of the vote. Biden, I got 87% of the vote. That's a tough jury to overcome when you're a defense attorney.
Real tough odds. But hey, if anybody can defeat some tough odds, it's Donald J. Trump. Arthur, keep fighting the good fight. Thanks for making time for us today, my friend.
Have a great weekend.